Okay, so this is a Mimi Pond thing. I think I told you about this. I really like this one a lot. It's about her time working at this weird diner in the early 70s, right? Right about leaving the hippie era into the punk era, that era. Now, a lot of people, when they're doing a graphic novel like this, and hers is a very thick one, they'll come up with a very economical style. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So in her case, it's this dark line with this muted green thing, right? Now, that can go to, here's a totally different take on it. Totally different style, right? Really
Yeah,
cool.
but a lot less economical.
Yes. Now, for this though, because you're only doing 2 pages, you could do a style like that, a style this involved or more involved if you want. Okay. I'm not saying that, let me turn the light on. I'm not saying that you can't ever do that. I used to have an Alex Ross book that was a pretty thick book. I never read it because I couldn't get into it. But every panel was a gouache painting, like a pretty involved gouache painting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, who knows how long it took him to do that, but he's Alex Ross, so he can probably go, you get it when you get it. Although nobody can really do that, but he probably has a lot more cachet. And he probably can negotiate the contract where he goes, I need 2 years to do this or whatever. Okay, a totally different style, yeah? A totally different style, flat. You could do it vector if you wanted to. And then this is just a bunch of different styles. Mouse, everybody probably knows that. Just all these different. And if you notice, like this one, I mean, pretty much all of them are pretty unique, fairly personal styles usually. And I just did a search in Pinterest for like graphic novels. Totally different style here, much more comic booky. So when somebody was asking me about style or whatever, it's wide open. Does that make sense? Now, what you never want to do in a class like this with somebody like me is go, oh, I'm just going to do that super easy style because I don't really want to work that hard. Don't do that. Okay. Do something that is, this is a really good chance for you to go to just really start to explore your own thing. Okay. Which I think is really, 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 really important. Okay. You're in a generation that's a lot different than other generations. Never been a generation that I've ever seen that has so much copying going on. And I think that's really just a byproduct of digital culture. Has just created windows into everything. And, and it's created cultures around entertainment design. It's created cultures around comic books. It's created cultures around all these things. And then it creates disciples of the style of the thing and of the storytelling and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we had it when I was a kid. It was just music when I was a kid. It's like, you're in a band, you sounded like whoever, your friend down the street's in a band, they sound like AC/DC. That band sounds like a crappy version of the Rolling Stones. This one sound, it was a different medium, same kind of idea, right? They hadn't really developed their own thing yet, And most people do go through some form of imitation at some point, but I'm trying to encourage you now to start breaking free of that. Does that make sense? That's what makes you employable. That's what makes you unique. And, you want to create your own thing, you don't want to end up just drawing like somebody else or painting or whatever like somebody else. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yes.
So it's a good place to step off the cliff. And also you're free of the constraints of tropes. Okay. So I'm not going here, give me the one of 5 slots of entertainment designy kind of stuff and give me something like that. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for your own thing based on your own story. Okay. That's why both things are going to go together. And I'm not going to give you the text. Okay. Also, it's going to force you to like design pages. How are you going to do that? Now you don't have to do this, which I think is what a lot of people think when they think of a graphic novel. The thing I like about graphic novels is partly the storytelling element isn't just in a genre. I mean, it can be in a genre, but it's sort of, a lot of them are personal stories or whatever. I just mean, well, what was that one? Was it, I can't remember the name of it, but it became famous. I think it might've been a movie too. Was it Ghost World? You guys remember?
I don't know.
I
My-
think Ghost World might have started as a graphic novel and then it became a movie. Or
Is it
there's a
Ghost
couple
in
of
a
them.
Shell?
Huh?
Ghost in the Shell?
No, that's in a genre.
Okay.
That's anime or whatever that is. I'm trying to avoid that. I'm just trying to get you into your own thing. Okay. And spend time on it. Okay. I was just telling my class, and I might have mentioned this in here, but I'm deliberately slowing everything down because for the last 20 some odd years, my whole life around work and image creation and whatever I was doing, making something, was always based around speed. And oh my God, we got to get it by next week. Oh shit, we're not going to hit the deadline. Oh my God. It was all that. So I haven't had time to sit around and luxuriate in the process of making things, which I love. And start this when we get to a point, start it as soon as you can. So you have that time. Right now, I think I told you guys, I'm just doing sketchbook paintings and things like that to figure a bunch of stuff out I want to do for bigger paintings and just in general. So I'm experimenting a lot in there. And what I'm doing is I go in there and fiddle with it for a while until I run out of steam. And then I just forget about it until tomorrow. And then I look at it the next day and I go, it needs this, it needs this. And I got fresh eyes on it. And it really helps your process if you have that time to evaluate your work. Okay, does that make sense? Look
Yeah,
at it
it
in a
makes-
mirror, check it, then just put it away, open it up the next day and go. And everything usually the next day you'll go, oh my God, that thing's wonky right there. I got to fix that. I got to do that. And you just do that and you're just polishing it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Now, here's what I was going to say. Here's my pages. And they go panel, 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 panel. You know what I'm saying? Yes?
Yeah, it looks
All the same
boring.
size, all uniform
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many different ways you can do this and you can just look up and you can use comic books. It doesn't matter. It's just, this just becomes about breaking up shape, where like that one we just looked at has all these, all this whatever you call it, city or whatever back here. And then it had two insert panels here. It could be, maybe I have some real dynamic scene up here that requires some shape like that. And then maybe this one isn't even in a panel. Maybe I put my character here, sitting at their desk, and maybe the night light or the whatever you call that, the light comes over their desk here and breaks this panel. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Maybe he's at his drawing board. And he's
Looks
drawing.
like you.
Now it needs this. Now it looks like me. And it's got to be angry. I'll make it angry.
Yes.
Like sitting there drawing all angry. And again, maybe this one is free of panels and there's something here. And then maybe, maybe I've got one here and two here, maybe like that. Okay. So I start to get a more interesting layout. Okay. Now, if you're going to have talk bubbles, you got to kind of design that in. Maybe there's some text right here in this. It's free floating. It's not in a bubble. Maybe all of yours is not in a bubble. Maybe there's talk here.
Should we be figuring out this first or like,
I want
First-
story first.
okay,
And what I do, whenever I'm thinking of anything sequentially or anything, I tend to go, I want to know, and I used to do this on 3x5 cards when I was doing my book or whatever, but you can obviously do it here. I might kind of go, okay, I think these 2 pages are going to show the part where this person meets this person in my hometown or whatever it is, right? And I go, where was it? Oh, it was at the old overpass. Okay, so that's my scene. And then maybe, okay, so this person's going to come in the scene and say this maybe. And what I literally do is I'll literally just go, here's the person, this person, here's this person, and maybe back here is the overpass. You know, and the road comes out here. And then here I'm going to have a panel, because the next thing that's happened is there was this angry conversation. You know, and I'll try and get it more natural in this. I'm just making this up. Or maybe this guy's showing this person something, so he's got something in his hand right here. And I'll just go, does that work? Okay. And then if I go, it doesn't work, I just go, screw it, I erase it, or I just do another one. I don't erase anything because things might start fitting into other ideas. Does that make sense? And if I get lucky, I might be able to just tear it out of one and throw it in the other. Because I mean, this stuff is down and dirty. All it is blocking. Does that make sense? You guys have heard of that with acting, right? Hey,
Yep,
come
sure.
in, Dave, you're standing over there, you're standing over there, and you have this confrontation. You come through the door, you do that. Okay. And it's not working. It's not that. Try coming in from the kitchen and I'll put a camera back here. You're doing the same thing. You're just blocking out the scenes and then making sure that it all visually flows. You have room for dialogue and then it flows into the next page. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So you don't even have to have panels. I mean, if you have another way of, you know, maybe it's vignettes. Maybe it's like, maybe I have somebody here. And I go, this is going to be at night, let's say. And he's still holding something. I don't know what it is. And maybe gesturing with the other hand or something. And these aren't to be good drawings. It's just see if this is going to work. And then maybe I go, this is going to be in a dark room or whatever. And I go, I'm going to have I'm going to lighten that up a hair. Why isn't that working? Hang on. That's weird. That's not working. Hang on. That'll work. Maybe I have this. I wouldn't put it in the middle of the page like that, by the way. And then I'm going to vignette off these edges, and I'm going to do it. Maybe I'm going to do this as a cool desaturated wash, maybe. And then I'm going to come in here and just go, and I'm just going to have stark lighting. And the light's going to be coming from here. You know, and I'm just going to do a vignetted, some kind of vignetted thing. Does that make sense? And then maybe behind here, sort of like we talked about with the last thing, maybe back here, I just have some line work that shows the interior of the room or something. Maybe there's a light hanging right here. That's too low. You know, and something back here. In a window. Maybe this door is open. And I just do that, and I just do a wash over it, and I just do vignetted edges, or I do a digital wash over it, whatever. It's not in a panel. And then maybe, you know, and then maybe I do have something here. That is also, could just be a reaction shot or something. What happened? You know, yeah, Photoshop's doing weird stuff. Hang on. Oh, I think I know what it is. Yeah. And I have something here that's bordered. You know, maybe I have a reaction shot or a close-up of whatever this thing is, you know, or something like that. Maybe I have two of them. You know, maybe I got one down here or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How you want to lay this thing out is totally up to you. Okay. And again, style is up to you. Medium is up to you. I don't care what media you use. Okay. It can be all digital, it can be combinations, can be all traditional. I don't care. Okay. You can paint it and then you can bring it into Photoshop and then tweak it in Photoshop if you want, which is fun. You might want to make a texture or something. You know, maybe I gesso a board and I do some washes over it and I scan it and I bring it in. Maybe I'll use that and do an overlay over my final panel so it has texture and a little bit of organic stuff going on in it. Millions of ways to do this. Maybe I do it where I scan cardboard and I bring cardboard in, and then maybe I do it so it looks like it's old cardboard beat up, and I get a piece of beat up cardboard. And then maybe I bring in my panels or look like old Polaroids that are taped onto the cardboard for some reason. You could do it that way. I mean, you can do it any way you want to do it that makes sense. Maybe if it was a story I did from grade school or like 7th grade, maybe it looks like an old notebook with the, you know, the kind of drawings you did and stuff like that when you're, you know, kind of in that flavor, right? Maybe it looks like blue ballpoint pen because everybody drew with those back then. Does that make sense? All that's up to you, okay? Maybe you go and do it literally in ballpoint pen, then you can place that onto your, because this is how I would do it. I might go, I'm going to draw this in ballpoint pen, or maybe I'm going to, you know, you can find a brush that looks like that in Photoshop. Maybe I'll do that, and then I'll have I'll scan an old beat up notebook, and then I'll start placing all my elements over that. Does that make sense? Million ways to do it, okay? And that's what I'm expecting from you guys, that you guys start figuring that out. Yeah? Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, all I'm trying to avoid in the storytelling is tropes. That's all. Okay. It could be something fantastic. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want it to feel like it's trying to be something else. Okay.
Could it
Yeah.
be just fairly simple, like a small story from our childhood that's
Yeah.
funny or something?
Absolutely.
That's basically what I want to do.
Yeah, you can do that. That's totally fine. Now, but then, you know, and then we'll start probably over the next, what are we at, Wednesday? And then by Wednesday of next week, I think we should really probably have it verbally nailed down. Verbally.
Can we start like pitching today?
Yeah.
Or-
What do you want to pitch?
Okay. So like I wanted to do like a story from when I was a kid with my brother that was kind of embarrassing but funny. So we went to the beach and we were swimming in the wrong area, like where the surfers were supposed to be and stuff. And this lifeguard comes up to my little brother, and he's this scrawny ass lifeguard with like his floaty and everything. And he's like, hey, you guys are in the wrong. And my brother starts screaming at the top of his lungs, you're not my dad. You're not my dad.
Okay,
The
that's funny.
lifeguard taps me on the shoulder and he's like, hey, you guys are not in the right area. And then all the surfers are looking at us and I just like take this walk of shame dragging him out.
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay, cool. I'm glad.
Yeah. And again, you don't have to tell the whole thing in 2 pages. You can go, hey, it's about this, and I'm going to show these 2 pages that are going to show this part of the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make it where it's 2-page short condensed. I mean, you could if you wanted to do that, but just think of it as part of a larger story, right?
Yeah. I just thought, I don't know, because I can visually picture it and how I'd frame it. So
Sure, yeah.
I don't know.
Who else has got one?
I'm doing something from a comic that I've been writing for a little bit now.
About?
Do you remember like my turtle character from about a year ago? So I wanted to have like a cutesy children's type comic book story with him when he's like a really small turtle. And basically he's walking around the forest floor watering plants and tending to like little insects and stuff.
Okay, why does he do that?
Because it's his job. Like he goes to work and that's
So
like
what am
what
I
he
going to
does for a
see?
living.
What am I going to see? What makes it interesting as a visual story?
I want it to be really pretty and elaborate. It's kind of like a fantasy setting. So it's a really interesting looking forest floor with different types of flora and things like that. And I wanted him to kind of like walk around just saying hi to insects in their own little world and seeing what that looks like.
Yeah, I think if you can give that a little more narrative around it, does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Just give me like something's happening in these 2 panels. You know what I mean? Am I
Okay.
getting introduced to this turtle? Am I getting?
Yeah, I was thinking of like the introduction because like I already have a pretty big script for it. I have like everything from the shots to the dialogue. I'm trying to narrow down which part of it I want to do.
Yeah, what I'd say is that those 2 pages need to have, if it's introducing him, then give me a fun little introduction, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Why does he do it? Maybe, what's his relationship to the community? What, all that stuff. Does that make sense? Is he a nice guy? Has he got nefarious reason? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
So I would nail that part down.
Okay.
And you could, and by the way, when we start doing this, I want these, if you go, I'm going to panel this out, just rough it out. I want them rough. Okay. I think one of the most valuable things that you can learn early on when you're doing this stuff, when you're basically doing it, like if you're working with someone like me, like if I was, whether this is a professional situation or not, a lot of times with people I was working with, if I was managing them, I would tell them, I go, look, just give me super rough sketches. I don't want nothing finished, and I'll do a couple drawings and I'll go, no more than that. And they'll go, really? I don't do any more than that. I go, no, I just need to know what your ideas are. Because why do I do that? It's a time saver. And it's also, you've got to get into, because now we've gone through that whole process. So I'm not going to belabor that anymore. You've got to, especially when you're working for yourself, when you're figuring it out and it's not even stuff people are going to see, man, as long as you can read it and it's as long as you can read it, I'm talking about the stuff you're working out your story for yourself. As long as you can read it, just go. And because what you want to do is you want to get as close to sort of your visual or your imaginative mind sort of spilling straight out onto the page sort of, and get into that flow of stuff happening where you're sort of in the story and you're going, what if I came around the corner? I come around the corner and I see this. Okay, cool. And then what if I go over here and I do this? And then you might do 5 of those and go, oh, that all sucks. You didn't spend any time on it. You're not invested in it. And then you're willing to let it go because it's not precious. And then you're willing to keep going and try something else. Or maybe you just go, well, screw that panel. That doesn't work. But what if I do this? Or maybe you change something on page 2 and you go, well, if I change that, I've got to kind of change a couple of things over here because it doesn't make sense when I get to here. It's not flowing correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One of the things when I was doing my children's book is I think I just got index cards. and I had a big piece of foam core. I might have said this already. And I just kind of go, okay, I think this is what's going to happen in the first page. And I just did a literally 3 or 5 minute sketch, and I stuck it on there. And I just vomited up the whole thing, right? Without editing, without giving a damn. And then I just sat back and looked at it. And I had a girlfriend at the time I could work really well with creatively. And I go, what do you think of this? And she go, this over here doesn't make sense. And what happened is that the initial story I had got sort of polished, and because then I'm looking at the whole arc of the whole thing, right? So then I'm going, well, wait a minute, this is all convoluted right here. It all sounds fine in my head when I'm just thinking about that part. When I look at it in the context of 30 pages or whatever it is, that doesn't really work. Okay, so then I start working on that. Then I had to be willing to let the story sort of evolve, and it did. It sort of evolved into a different story a little bit. But everything started, and then I noticed if I go like she'd say, or I'd say, these 3 panels here, pages aren't working. So I'd revise those, and then I'd realize you go, oh, I have to go back up to over here now and revise that in connection to that thing that's going to happen 8 pages later. And you start seeing how every part of the story starts affecting everything when you're looking at it as in broad overview. Okay. I couldn't write a novel, but I could write children's books all day long. And because I can write and visualize at the same time, you can't really do that with a novel. And I couldn't hold a narrative that long together. Right. But I can do it visually. And it's nice because you can literally, most children's books aren't over, I think it's 28, 29 pages, something like that. And they don't have a ton of dialogue. Well, some of them do, but I can get a big visual overview. It's the same thing they do with movies where they storyboard them out, and they do the same thing. They go, that's not working. Okay, now we work that out. Now all this has got to be scrapped because it's not making sense here. And they're just shaping that story. Does that make sense? Which I think is super fun. I think it's super fun to throw things down super loose. It's like throwing clay down and then just sculpting it, and polishing it and fixing it, and and all of a sudden you got something that looks pretty finished. You know what I mean? And to me, writings like that, drawings like that, illustrations like that, paintings like, everything's like that. Okay. And story development to me is that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Super loose. You don't want to go in thinking, oh, here it is. It's page 1 is this, and page 2 is that, page 3 is that. That's probably not going to happen. Okay. It's got to evolve, and you got to give it some breathing room where you're not thinking every idea you've come up with is just totally amazing. You know what I mean? That's a big danger that people have. They think everything they do is great. And it's like, no, it isn't. Everything they do is great. Nobody. Okay. Okay. So any questions on that?
I have my story idea.
What is it?
It's part of my Western, I guess, comic. It'll be on this part where the protagonist has to stop the train.
Okay.
Like she's riding on her horse, and then she tries to stop the train, but there's some people stopping her and trying to shoot at her. And
Why is she trying to stop the train?
that's part of her goal. Like she's trying to sabotage the Transcontinental Railroad.
Why?
Because of the Chinese inequality on the railroad workers.
Okay. You could do that. Yeah.
Mhm.
But okay. So this would be 2 pages out of a much larger narrative.
Yeah,
And you're giving me a section that's sort of an action sequence.
yeah,
Yeah, you could totally do that.
okay.
So what year is it?
Like late 1800s.
Yeah, so you got steam engines, you got horses, you got a lot of shit to draw on that one,
Yeah,
right? You got a lot of there could be a lot of really cool stuff to draw on that.
yeah. I want to have a lot of in the fight scene.
Okay, yeah, I'm down with that. That's cool.
Okay.
Start anybody I just say, yeah, that sounds cool. Start just like I just showed you, just rough.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be a horse here, just enough so I can see what's going on, how it's placed, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And maybe kind of think, am I going to have panels or word bubbles in this, or is it just going to be free floating type? That sounds a little more like a free floating type thing to me, but I don't know. That's up to you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Start going.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Amelia, you're going to start going. Andrew's going to start going. Who else?
I
Mike,
got one.
What is it?
All right, so pretty much it's this guy who's having a great day and he's wearing his favorite t-shirt with just like a simple design. And then it cuts to like a car driving by and splashing it, or something happens to where he ruins his shirt and he's all bummed, like crying on the curb. Then he looks up and there's a tattoo shop like right in front of him. So he goes in and gets the design tattooed on his chest, and then he's walking out in the last slide like all stoked again.
What does he get tattooed on?
I don't know the design I want yet, but I'm thinking just like a simple t-shirt design, like an
But
eagle.
why does so why does he get a tattoo?
Because it's his favorite shirt and he's having a good day and something happens to where he ruins the shirt and it ruins his whole day.
But what is the tattoo connection?
Because the shirt is ruined, so he can't wear it anymore. So he gets the tattoo because the shirt was his favorite design.
So, but does
And
he
it-
have the shirt design tattooed on him?
Yeah, no, it's just the design, not like the actual t-shirt with like,
That's what I mean.
yeah, just the design on the t-shirt itself.
are you allowed to do that?
Allowed to do what?
Like in real life, though, are you allowed to take other people's artwork and tattoo it?
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
Kat,
on you.
Kat
I
Von
don't
D
know.
just got sued for it, so
Yeah,
we'll see
that's
how
what I
that-
was thinking about.
I don't
It
know how
could have
you
been
can
like
get
his
sued for
favorite
that.
shirt because
It's-
his grandpa
Wait,
designed
are you
it.
serious?
You're not putting on your body and then making money off it. If you're not making money off it, they can't come after you for it.
Yeah, people get logos and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
No, so Kat Von D is the artist that did make money off of it, and she's getting sued for copyright infringement for taking somebody else's art and tattooing it onto somebody.
Well, if that's true, that would basically destroy the tattoo industry.
Yeah, and so like that's why it's in court right now. So who knows how it's going to
Suing
play
her,
out?
You know who's suing her?
I don't know, but I can find out real
It
quick.
was a celebrity's photograph, and then she tattooed it on someone else.
There's
who
just-
wanted
No,
it.
it's the photographer that's suing her. It's not the celebrity.
It's like,
Yeah, I
you know,
think
okay,
so.
so like right now, I'm doing this sketchbook painting of a musician I like, right? And then, you know, at first I was, you know, I just pulled an image of him that I liked and just started as a fun sketchbook thing. They can't come after me for that because now I'm starting to change all the lighting in it anyway, but even if I didn't, it's like I'm not putting it out there for sale or anything. Now, the musician I'm drawing is already commenting on it and he likes it and all this stuff. Now, if he came to me and goes, hey man, I want to use that for my first gig after COVID or whatever, then it would then I'd have to go talk to the photographer probably. Now, I don't know if they'd really have to because I'm starting to change all the lighting in it anyway. And once you sort of like start changing everything, it gets, especially if you caricature it or something like that, they can't come after you. But like, you know who Sebastian Kruger is? Okay, he does a lot of, almost all of his stuff is like based on celebrities. They call it pop surrealism or something. He's this monster painter. A lot of times he totally stylizes these things like insanely, right? But he also does a lot of just straight, almost straight portraits of, you know, the Stones or whoever. He probably has to go to the photographer of that and get clearance and license it or whatever he has to do to use that image as a starting point. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
But if you're putting it on your personal self, there's not really any leg to stand on there unless they're
Did this
gonna,
tattoo artist make that tattoo in advertisement?
So
That
here's
and
here's
might-
the details. It's a photographer, Jeffrey Sedlick, apparently took this photo of Miles Davis and published it as the cover of a magazine
uh-huh.
in like '89, which I think is what's going to screw him over. But he's claiming that he has the sole copyright to that image because he's the photographer that took it. Somebody took that photo into Cat to have it tattooed on
Yeah,
him.
but it's not really falling
Yeah.
into, it's not falling into commercial use.
Yeah. I think this guy's gonna lose, but he's suing her for a ton of money.
Is he? It'd be interesting to find out if he's actually had any sort of career.
I doubt it.
That's
I-
what I think.
I
I think what he's
seriously
doing
doubt it.
is
Yeah.
he's sort of going, I'm going to make a big splash and make a big name for myself. And
Yeah.
who knows, maybe they'll throw 15 grand at me or whatever. Because unless she's using it somehow for some sort of, maybe if she's using it for some sort of advertising or something, if it went to some level of that, or I don't know how she merchandises herself. I don't know. For all I know, she might take pictures of her tattoos and then make posters out of them. Who knows? If she does that, now you're into copyright problems.
Yeah.
Or if it's on her show or something, maybe.
I don't even know if it would fall into that. You know what I mean?
It might. So whenever I'm drawing, I watch Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares because I just have nothing better to do. And sometimes the
show.
tattoos are blurred out. I know it's a great show, but sometimes the tats are blurred out.
They might be blurred out though. There's a bunch of reasons it might be blurred out. He might have a picture of a really famous chef's knife on his arm, and they're like, they don't advertise. Fuck them. They're not getting free advertising. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's
He
true.
could have and he wouldn't have this probably, but he could have a can of Coors tattooed on his arm, and they're going to go, nope. That's if they want to do a product placement thing and pay for it. Yeah, we'll show it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Copyright, by the way, this is actually an important conversation in here. Copyright, all that copyright stuff is really weirdly murky. Okay. That's why this guy can take this thing to court when really, it's like, it's for personal use, dude. It doesn't matter. It's a murky thing that you actually should delve into, because when you're doing illustration, like let's say somebody goes, hey, we want you to come up with a line of t-shirts, graphics for a t-shirt, illustrations, whatever. And then, they're popular. Okay. And so what happens then is you've licensed that image to them or whatever. And then they go, and then 6 months later now you start seeing it on keychains, coffee mugs, skateboards, blah, blah, blah. And then you can go back to them and go, I didn't license all that stuff. I licensed t-shirts. That's it. And now you created all this other stuff. Now you got a case. And now most of them will crumble and go, all right, screw it. And they'll pay you because they don't want to go to court. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful with contracts and things like that. Okay. And a lot of times, depends on who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with some mom and pop shop, they don't know about that and they don't care. And then when you go to them and go, hey man, you're making, you're using this for all this other stuff I didn't say. And they'll go, screw you. You know what I mean? Because they don't think you, and number one, they don't think you have any power for some reason. And if it's a big enough deal, now if they've made $500 off it, it's probably not worth it. But if they're making a lot of money off it, and for me, it gets into a weird issue with principle. Does that make sense? Yeah.
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 I had a guy, and I shouldn't tell this story because don't handle things like this. Okay. But I had a guy one time. I didn't like him anymore.
Before you start, should you be recording this part?
No, it's not that big a deal. But I didn't like him to begin with. I shouldn't have never done anything for him. And I think probably deep down, I wanted something to go wrong with it. But anyway, it's a whole long story how this job went wrong. And part of it was his client, who was a singer. I was doing the CD work. And she was just a spoiled brat. Her husband had a bunch of money and it was just a bunch of bullshit. And then so I had a meeting over at Disney or something. And this is just some little side job I was doing. It wasn't like I really cared that much about it. I stupidly thought it'd be fun. And I go, hey, I got it. And she sent me an email and I sent her an email going, I'm going to Burbank right now. I got this meeting at Disney. I'll talk to you afterwards. So apparently she thought I was supposed to be at her beck and call. Okay. And that irritated me. So then I called her, blah, blah, blah. And then she said something and I don't remember what it was now. And then I got a call from the guy from the agency and he goes, hey, whatever her name was, Kathy called me and she said this. And I go, yeah, I don't care. And he goes, well, you need to get that done. I go, don't tell me I need to get it done. I go, you need to get a handle on your client because I can't get this done because she keeps changing everything. And you're telling me the deadline for the print ready work is Thursday and it's Tuesday. And every time I send her something and she approves it, then she comes back to me with another change. So you need to get a handle on your client. And if you don't want to get a handle on your client, I'll get a handle on her. You want me to do it? And of course he didn't want that. So then he didn't have the in-house staff to do it correctly. So then he tried to be a big tough guy and he said, well, I'm just going to have to give it to my in-house staff. I go, good, I'm done. And then I billed him. And then he came back to me with some snotty email or something. And from there, it really went ugly. Okay. But it was a principle thing. You know what I mean? It's like, if you think you're not paying, and I told him, I go, I don't even care about this money, but you're paying me, period. End of story. You're paying me, dude. And if you want to make this into a big thing, I will make your life absolutely miserable, which I did. And he paid me. Don't do it like that. You know, it wasn't enough money for me to give a damn about suing anybody. It was probably $2,000 or something, $3,000. I don't know what it was, but it was just a principle thing for me. I don't like getting screwed over. Does that make sense? But do it the right way is what I'm saying. Yeah. And I've only had little things like that. And normally I wouldn't handle it like that. I just didn't like this guy to begin with. I should have never done anything for him. It's my own fault. Okay. So moral of the story, that's not how you handle it. You take somebody to court. Yeah. And make sure that you've got invoices, contracts, all your emails. When you're dealing with a client, all that goes into a folder where you know where it is. You have your whole paper trail. You have your invoice or whatever, have a kill fee. You can have a kill fee on it. Because sometimes a lot of jobs, you'll be, I don't know, 2 weeks into it. And then they go, you know what, we're going to kill this. And it has nothing to do with you or anything. It's just for whatever reason, the job got killed. You can have a kill fee on there where they go, okay, we pay you whatever it is, a third or whatever, if it gets killed. So you get something out of it. Does that make sense? Now, a lot of times if it's killed, if you're billing hours and things like that, then they're just paying you for your billed hours, then you're fine, right? I mean, I've worked on a million jobs that have just died, you know, and you're like, okay, whatever. And you just bill them and you're done. Yeah. Also, there's a lot of apps now that are really helpful. I really like it because I like to bill ethically. I want to make sure that I'm not billing over for my time or any of that stuff. And sometimes I want to play. Like I just want to go, I can make this really cooler, but I can't really justify charging for it. But I want to do a better job, right? Which is probably a stupid way to think, but whatever. And so anyway, they have these apps. And I had one that's real simple. You could just put the client's name, you know, the job, and then it just had, and then the dollars per hour in it. And then basically you could just go, I'm working, you tap it, it's billing your hours. And literally if I went to the bathroom, I stopped it. If I went and made a sandwich, I stopped it. Anything I was not working, I stopped it. So if anybody came at me and said, and they rarely ever did, came at me and said, well, I think this is a little steep. I'm like, no, it isn't. That is spot on to the minute. There's no way I'm dropping that charge. Forget it. That is totally.
What app is this?
I think the one I had this a long time ago, I think it was called My Time. It was super simple, which I like. Now you could probably get more complicated ones that'll do some of your work for you in there, in the accounting and all that kind of stuff. And that'd be great. I just like it really simple. And then again, I keep all my correspondence with that, all my emails, if they text me, all that stuff, you know what I mean? I want to have all that stuff. So if they ever say, I didn't say that, you go, yeah, you did. Here it is right here. Here's exactly what you said. You know what I mean? And now you have Zoom. So if you have a client meeting over Zoom, record it, because if they come back and say, I didn't say that, then I would take that right into Premiere. I'd clip it, bust it off at both ends, send it off and said, there it is. That's what you said. Exactly. And that's what I did. Right.
Now, what if they don't give you permission for the recording?
Well, then
You just all you got to do is tell him up front that you're recording him. Like,
But
hey, I'm going to record this.
Well,
But
they
if you
could
tell them that and then they say no, you can't just keep recording.
Don't work with them.
Yeah, don't work with him. Yeah,
it's easy, it's easy to say that, but like if you're working, you got bills to pay and you got a kid and a mortgage and a car, and it might be a lucrative job. You don't want to just go, I don't work with you. You know what I mean?
Most clients are not going to have a problem with you recording a conversation about contracts because that protects them as well.
It'll make them more
Here's the only thing,
truthful
though.
too.
Here's the only thing with that. A lot of times you're dealing with people who aren't the creative people. It might be an HR person who is just going to be super weird about everything. They're going to be super weird about lawsuits and super weird about this. And I don't really blame them because they can get sued like crazy in California. It could be somebody who's just like also just doesn't know what they're doing and is just like a middle management supervisor. And they're like, why are you recording this? Oh, I just record it for my records. What do you need that for though? You know, and they get all paranoid. I mean, it could just be stuff like that. It could be not that they're doing anything nefarious or whatever. They don't know what they're doing, kind of. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're shocked how many people you go out and work with don't know what they're doing, like in any business. You know what I mean? I've worked for businesses where I'm like, how is this company a $50 million a year company? The president of this company's a moron. You know what I mean? And by the way, that's a really good learning experience when you're working in-house someplace and you're going, this company's successful, but it seems like the guy who, it could be the president, could be the owner. It seems like they're not bright. You know what I mean? And so what I always did then is I go, how is this company successful? Why is it successful? You know what I mean? Because I want to know, I want to reverse engineer it, because that's good business experience for yourself. If you ever, you know, whether you're freelancing or whether you ever start your own company, you know, you're learning all these things that are good and bad. You want to find out, like, I don't want to just go, well, that guy's an idiot, he got lucky. If the company sustained itself for X amount of time, it's probably not luck. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The one I just described, who didn't seem very bright to me, I realized when he was younger, and he still was, but when he was younger, he was still good looking. He was probably around my age then. Super good looking guy. Like if you went to a restaurant and saw him, you'd be like, is that dude like in movies or something? Charismatic and super competitive. And those are the three things how he built that company. Okay. Then he basically almost snorted the whole company up his nose in the 80s, right? Then he got clean. But then I was like, okay, he's not that smart and he's not that bull in a china shop. He's still competitive, but not the way he was then. And then I realized, oh, the CFO that he hired, that's the guy who's the brains of the company. That's the guy who runs the company. That's the guy who really makes the decisions. And the president or the owner of the company, president of the company, he just walks around and he's a figurehead and he likes being in charge, but he doesn't really do much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how that worked. And the moral of that story to me was, if you're going to start a company, surround yourself with people who can do the things you can't do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had people try to get me to start companies over and over again. I go, okay, we need at least probably 3 or 4 people to get this going. And then we start talking about it. And I go, okay, here's what I'm hearing. I'm doing everything. And I go, I'm not a sales guy. Forget it. This company will absolutely fail if you think I'm going to be able to go out and sell anything, because that's not what I do. I go, we need a production person. I already had that. We need me for creative. And I can go in and pitch things, but I'm not a salesperson. That's 2 different things. I go, we need a salesperson. We need somebody who really knows import, export, and all the stuff around that, all that, or logistics. Okay. Is it freight on board, which means it's going to come into the harbor in LA. They're going to take it from there to their distribution center, or are we taking it to the distribution center? Blah, 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 on and on and on. There's a lot of stuff to know there. And I knew that there's no way I could do all that. I can do the creative, I can do management, I can do, I know how to make product, and I know how to go in and schmooze clients and pitch and all that kind of stuff. But that's it. That's all. And that's what I'm good at. And that's about it. And by the way, yeah, I want to go in and pitch the product, but I want a sales guy is the person that has to get you into that room, right? Like, I'm not good at getting myself in that room, like sitting there and getting on the phone and going, no, cold calling and all that stuff that salespeople know how to do. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at all at that, right? So then you get somebody who is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Don't ever think you can do everything. Some people can. I can't. Okay. All right. Who else? Does that all make sense, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Protect
that one's
yourself.
good. That one worked.
Ethical. Protect yourself, be ethical, keep a paper trail of everything, and really look at those contracts. Okay. The guy created Bratz. Okay. He was working at Mattel when he created Bratz. I think he pitched Bratz to Mattel and they're like, we don't care about this. Then he went over to MGA. And I think he wasn't working at Mattel anymore. Went to MGA, pitched it there, and it became a monster giant hit, right? Then, and I hate Mattel, by the way. And Mattel came after him and sued him. And they go, we own that. They sued MGA and him. And and what they said was they go, it says in your contract that anything you create, whether it's here for us or out at home, we own it. And stuff. It was really weird, right? And then
Disney has a similar contract, right?
Yeah.
I never
Yeah, they
saw
do.
anything like that.
When I got hired, they did.
What were you doing?
I was working in the hotels. I was working food and beverage, but in the contract there was a clause for creative
Why
stuff.
would that even be in there?
And you?
Yeah,
it's
I'm
on
a
you.
cast member in the parks, and I had the same
Yeah.
thing in the contract. So I
What did
assumed
it say though?
it said like this isn't verbatim, but it said something along the lines of any creative, like it was any creative. It was worded very weird, but basically it said that if you create something, whether it be a design used in marketing or anything like that, it's owned solely by the company.
Well, okay, but if you say it something, for marketing, then you're saying that it's like you're creating something basically for Disney.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's why I think people are misinterpreting that. A standard NDA, well, an NDA is non-disclosure, so I'm not going to talk about whatever I'm working on. That's fine. And then they're going to have something in there that basically says everything you create here, we own, which they do. I don't have a problem with that. That's why I'm there. It is Disney's property, okay? Because I'm creating it for Disney. I can't go, hey, I'm creating all this stuff, now I'm taking it home, you can't have it. That doesn't make any sense, okay? What I'm talking about is stuff you create outside of your normal job, okay? If I would have created something when I was at the Disney stores, yeah, and the only way they would have came after me is if I would have pitched something maybe at Disney, and then I would have, and they didn't like it, and I go, this is a good idea, man. I'm going to go pitch it to so-and-so. They would have kind of a legitimate thing, because you're like, no, you created that for us. We own that. You created that for us. That's different, okay? Because I did. I actually had this happen to me. I did this. It was just a concession thing, but it was fun. And by the way, I also created a concession thing for the next company I worked for, and they built a whole company out of it. Okay, they created a whole new category, but this one was just a thing for that mummy movie thing. That's how long ago it was, and it was just a clever idea, right? And of course, the idiots I worked with at the company at the time, they just didn't get it, right? And then I can't remember if we pitched it to Universal or not. I can't remember, but it's a toyetic thing. And then I went to my next company, and I still had that thing, and I go, well, that didn't fly. I want to pitch it here because I think it's a good idea. So because I go, hey man, let's go out to the Universal business. Screw that company, right? Because I didn't like them. And then it was super weird. Like I didn't expect this at all. And then I got they got like, I think a cease and desist thing or something like that. And then they go, hey, this happened, and I go, what are they talking about and everything? And they go, they said, you pitched this before, and it was the exact same thing. And I go, I did, you know what I mean? I could have probably got fired for that. I really thought it was more fair game because it was a discarded idea. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But what they were really trying to do is shut down us going after Universal. Actually, now to think about it, we got all that business. Now to think about it, big time. We got all that business because of a new idea, right? So I don't give a shit. If you tell me I can't do that, I got a million ideas. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Although it sucks when you have a really good one. But so honor those things, and I should have. That was on me. That wasn't on them. I just thought, it's a discarded idea. Nobody cares about it. They're never going to know about it. Who cares? You know what I mean? So that was on me. That was my mistake. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's unprofessional. I should have honored my contract. I do believe in honoring my contracts. I'll go after you fair and square, which we did. And I'll go, I'm going to take all that business away from you based on we have better ideas and we're just better at it. You know what I mean? And I went that route afterwards. Okay. And took the business from them anyway. But that's fair game. Okay. I can go after their business, and then sometimes they have stuff written into your contract where they go, you can't go after our business for you can't compete. You can't go to a company that's competing with us for 2 years, let's say, right? Yeah.
Non-competes are the worst.
Non-compete thing.
Oh my God.
But you can get around those. Somebody pulled that on me. I can't remember who it was. Somebody said something about that, and I don't remember who it was. And I told him, I go, because somebody had looked at it. I didn't have a lawyer look at it, but somebody had looked at it who knew. And I go, well, they got me on this. And they go, no, they don't. And they go, because of this, this, and this. And then when they called me, I go, that paper ain't worth what it's written on, man. Forget it. I go, you can come after me all you want over that. And they never did because they'd screwed up the contract. That's another thing. A lot of times they take, especially now, they go online, they find some contract that's sort of the same, and they use it. And it's like, there's usually going to be so many screw ups in that because it's not written distinctly for their business or what you're doing. Does that make sense? So you know, just make sure you're reading your contracts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure you're reading your contracts. Don't just sign them. Okay. You know, and you can ask and stuff like that. And they start getting the whiff, you know, that you're either, if you're doing it right, they're probably just going to go, this is a typical professional's questions. If you're not doing it right, they're going to go, you're a pain in the ass. I don't want to deal with you. You know what I mean? You're just walking a tightrope. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then when you get to a certain level, if certain people get a certain level, nobody's going to try and mess with them that way, probably. All right. Who else?
Mike.
The idea is good.
Oh, sorry.
Who was saying that?
The tattoo one.
The only problem I have with that is I'm not it's not telling me what's motivating him or anything.
Motivating him to get the tattoo.
Yeah. It's sort of like this thing happens and he goes and gets a tattoo and you're like,
what if I add a slide before where like his grandpa gifts him the shirt or something to where it shows how it's special?
Oh yeah, that might work. Panel it out.
All right, because I kind of want to do that one.
Here's what I don't want to happen. I don't want it to just become a recording of an event. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like somebody last term, they go, I went to my anime group and somebody, the guy, and I'm the head of the anime group. And I said, I don't know, whatever it was. And then this person said this, and then we got in an argument and then this, and then I left, you know, and I'm like, okay, that's just a record of an event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's no story there. There's just a record of an event, you know?
Yeah.
Now you could take almost anything, kind of turn into a story, and that's fine. But I think what you really want to do is, you know, what we're trying to do here is clarify the narrative. Yeah.
All right.
Wait, is mine okay, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I mean, we're gonna polish it and stuff. So as long as
Yeah,
as long as you get the seed of something. By the way, Order of the North Star.
Illuminati.
Huh?
What is that? I've seen-
Flexing on us again.
Yeah, there's your logo
What logo?
for the shirt.
That is the logo. Order of the North Star, man. I'm gonna give these shirts away when we get back. Yeah.
No, I want one.
Yeah, I'll get you one.
Get
I
me
have
a
a bunch,
giant
but
one.
I have too many big sizes, so I'm gonna have some smaller sizes. But I'm just gonna give them to everyone when I come back.
Oh, so take your biggest size and add like 2 X's to that, and then I'll take one.
You know what's funny is I ordered a jacket online. You know, it's an XL. I ordered an XL, and it came in from somewhere in Asia. It was a cool jacket too. It sucked, and then it was like they sent me, because it was from Asia or whatever. They sent me like a
So tiny.
5XL. It was literally like XXXXXXL, and it was like maybe a large, maybe. It was like this. It was so crazy. I'm like, a 5XL here would just be a tent, you know. And this thing I put on, I'm like, oh, it almost fits, but it's not even an extra large at all. You know what I mean? I gave it to somebody.
When I'm shopping in China, I can't find shoes as my size, and I'm only at 8.5, and I literally can't find one. Like,
It sounds like I should stay away from China for shopping.
yeah, like
the one I got
8.5 is as far, like it is as far as they go. Like they're the biggest size, like for females in China. So like one or two store may have it, and that's it. It's really
Oh my
sad.
god, they wouldn't have anything near my shoe size.
You
'cause
probably
it's
have to go to a
American
big and
stores.
I'd probably have to go to a big and tall in China. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because even American stores don't have my shoe size like on stock. So I don't know what I would do about that.
You want giant shirts? Go to Walmart. They have giant shirts.
No, they're too small. They're not long enough.
I forgot to bring a shirt with me one time, and I had to go to work. And so I go, "What's near here?" And they go, "There's a Walmart over there." Okay, I'll just go get a T-shirt or something. I go over there, couldn't even find normal size shirts. They were all like 3X and bigger.
I'll check
Okay.
it out, but
All
I
right,
swear
who
that
else?
those shirts are too short.
Me.
Okay, what is it?
I want to personify my dogs and like have them do a little action sequence. You know, like kind of like hunting a monster, but I don't really know what monster. But I know it's going to be rodent based because my dogs killed rats before, and it was
Why are they hunting the monster? You got to give me a reason.
Make it a cat, and it's because the cat stole their lunch.
Yeah, it could be anything.
I
But
don't know. I was thinking about just like a generic, like, you know,
I don't want generic.
uh,
I want specific.
well,
Yeah.
I was thinking how like it was gonna be like post-apocalyptic.
Also, see,
But that would be like the setting, right?
I know, but what does every entertainment design person, when I go, hey, we're going to do an environment, what does every one of them say they're going to do?
Dystopian, sci-fi. It gets on my
Post-apocalyptic.
nerves. Yeah.
And what lives there? Monsters.
I like Enchanted
Yeah.
Forest.
I'm fine with it.
Yes.
Leah,
Yeah, hi.
see what I mean?
Yeah,
It's tropes. Those are tropes.
but they're
Huh?
fun.
I know, but it's like, do you know how many portfolios and stuff like you look at and it's like dystopian future, dystopian future, dystopian future, dystopian future. Creatures, monsters, superheroes. Okay, good. Yeah, great. Warriors, you know, all that stuff.
We're foreshadowing our future.
You don't want to I'm trying to pull you guys out of that, out of just any sort of tropey stuff. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So give me a reason. Number one, take it out of dystopian, whatever. Right? One of the reasons that you know why Monsters Inc. worked? Because they gave you a reason why the monster was in your closet.
Yeah.
Okay, they gave you a reason. Like, and they went, yeah, there really is a monster in your closet. And there really is a monster under your bed. And monsters are lurking around your room. And here's why. And then they gave you this totally weird backstory where they're like, oh, it's energy. Like totally like, you know, it's kind of interesting when you explain. And they did the same thing with Coco, really. They go, what is that world? You know, the whole sort of backstory of that, you know, the impact of why people have to remember the people that have passed. It actually has an impact over here. And they sort of explained this and created this world around it and,
Well, that's
and gave it its
folklore,
own
right?
set of rules, right?
Well, that's folklore, right? That's taken straight from their.
It's not, it's based on folklore, but
Yeah.
they took it in a totally different direction.
Yeah, but my like, I had this thing I did for when I was trying to get into art center, but it was like super rushed. So it would be my dogs like personified, but they're like going on a treasure hunt, and then like it would be like that, but then
You got to
I wouldn't have a reason to put a monster in there.
give me a story of what they're doing. It's like the children's book that I wrote. It's a story my dog told me, basically. You know what I mean? And then of course I had to expand on it and shape it and polish it and make it make sense. But you know, it had to have a reason. There was actually a part in that thing when I was doing that where I go, they're doing this. I go, but I don't know why they're doing it. And then finally I just went, that's not working. That's why you can't solve this, because it's not working. Go, you know, rewrite that part. It doesn't make sense. Give it a purpose, right?
Yeah.
So I don't care if you do a story about your dogs. I'm totally cool with that. I don't even care if there's something fantastic in it, but I want something. Once you give me dystopian monsters, I go, okay, that's a trope, right?
Can I
Yeah.
do treasure hunting monsters?
But give me a
In
reason.
the forest, right?
You're giving me is a reason to draw a Marvel movie. Do you know? what I
No,
mean?
it's a reason to draw my dogs, but yeah, I
That's
would
something.
agree with your statement.
Yeah. It's I don't want you to, and look, I do want you to, you know, you can, this is an opportunity because I do want you to do your own style or whatever and things. And I don't have a problem. This is your personal graphic novel. So if I was doing a personal graphic novel, I'm like, ooh, I want to draw this and I want to draw that. Of course I do. And I want to draw it like this and I want to do it all, whatever. And yeah, sure. But I gotta give myself, what I always say is you got to give yourself a structure to hang all those images on. Okay. Otherwise they're just a bunch of images for no reason. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So polish it and give me, you know, the reason. Yeah.
So no treasure hunting, no.
I wouldn't care if I feel like you're looking for a reason to draw that certain thing. Does that make sense?
It's just I had that idea for like, I had like a thing for it already, but then, I didn't make it into Art Center, obviously, so I scratched it. Like I scrapped it. Right? Like it was like supposedly that my dogs go treasure hunting, but
Well, I don't have a problem with them going treasure hunting. Just give me a reason why. Like what triggers this? Why are they going, do they find out? Actually, the thing I wrote it's not a treasure hunting thing, but they are looking for something, but there's this very specific reason why they're looking for that thing, right? And there's some conflict there. And then at the end of it, it sort of teaches them a bigger idea or whatever. But so it sort of tied itself up in a nice way, right? And yeah, I love drawing dogs, and I love drawing dogs in the forest and all that stuff. Of course, you know what I mean? But shape the story. Does that make sense?
yeah.
You always sound all bummed when I tell you to.
I don't know. Why does everything have to have a story and a value or like tie it back? I don't know. I just like, superficial stuff.
That's how narratives work, man.
I know, but it's only 2 pages.
I know, but so let's say you want to work in the entertainment industry. Okay. So then here I am, I'm the art director, and I go, hey, I got a couple ideas here, man. I'm kind of thinking this, kind of thinking that. So like maybe expand on those, or if you don't even want to expand on those, just give me a bunch of ideas. I come back and you're like, I don't have any ideas. I'm like, you're out. Like you're not creative. Forget it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, okay. So then the other alternative, and this doesn't exist as much anymore. It exists in a different way. They used to call that being a wrist. So then you'd have somebody, you'd come in and let's say you could draw really well. You're a great illustrator or something. Then they'd come in, they go, I want this, and I want that over there, and I want somebody back there, and I want the dog up on the hill, and I want this, and I want that, and I want it in this style, draw it, which sounds like torture to me, okay? Or that's kind of what a character artist does in a weird way, right? They got to draw the characters on model, doing whatever it is they're being asked to do. They're not character designers. They just draw the existing characters for packaging, for marketing, for movie, whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you is you have to marry, if you really want to have a strong creative career, you've got to marry fundamental skills, drawing, painting, illustration, concept design, whatever it is, viz dev, whatever it is you want to do, with ideas, because you ain't getting anywhere near visual development if you don't have ideas. You're not getting anywhere near it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or let's say I give you a character design thing, and then you give me post-apocalyptic monsters, and I go, I asked for this. I know, but post-apocalyptic monsters are cool. You're fired. You're out of here. You know what I mean? You have to think. It's a tricky thing. You got to think. They set up a structure around you. They give you parameters, and then you've got to be creative within those parameters. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you got to be creative on demand. Okay. Which means that, and then this happens all the time, where somebody's going to give you some creative problem and go, hey, I hate to do this. It's 10 in the morning, but I got to have it by noon. Okay. That means you got to come up with ideas and then visualize all those ideas in a couple of hours. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just what it is. You know what I mean? Now, if you want to go into, I don't know, texture mapping or something, then that's a little different. Then you're just going to have to figure out, how do I make that look like reptilian skin or whatever it is? You know what I mean? And not that that's easy. I'm not saying it is, but there's certain slots in there that kind of fall into the same wrist category that used to be, for drawing and all that stuff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So flesh that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to this.
What?
So I am understanding that we need to make a story, like give you a why, give you a reason to be interested. But with how little we have to work with in terms of the actual assignment with like the 2 pages thing, how would you approach it? Like
I would go, here's how I would do it. And I just tend to, and I probably said this before. I used to do this I still do it, but somebody will say something, somebody will text me, and then I'll do a quick little drawing of something and I'll shoot it back to them. And then, which it has something to do with what they said. And then they'll probably go, it's funny, blah, blah, blah. And they'll say something. And all of a sudden I've got 14 panels that I just, of these little, all these ideas that I just start going on this rabbit hole on the narrative. Right. So what I would do if I was doing this assignment, I would go, my story is this. Here's the beginning, middle, and end. I don't mean I'm write the whole thing out, but just know the arc of the story. It starts here, goes here, and goes here. So I have my basic idea trajectory of the story. Okay. Then I'd go, okay, within that story, what's happening? And that's going to be percolating in my head anyway. And then I might just write things down and go, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then I'm going to go, my 2 pages that I'm going to illustrate, it's just like Candace's thing where I go, I'm going to illustrate that badass action scene. You know what I mean? But when I see those 2 pages, I don't feel like it. I want to feel like it's like part of a bigger narrative because it is in your head. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So should we take like, so it sounds like you want us to have our story kind of not fleshed out, but we need to know what we're doing. And
I
then we
think
need to
I
pick
think it's better. What I always say to everybody, and I used to say this about everything. I'll give you another example. At Imagineering, when I was doing the that Beast Library thing, right? And when I was doing the furniture in there, I talked to my boss about it. He goes, "It's going to be like a reading table." And then there was another one actually, and they changed it. But one was the original video capture in that room was actually going to be the Beast mirror. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then I was talking to my boss and I go, would it make sense that he has a holder on the wall for the mirror? Like that was a problem for me. And then we went into this long, probably a half an hour conversation of why he would have the reading desk and if he would have an actual specialized thing to hold his mirror on the wall, right? Like a little thing to set it in, right? And I go, have you ever seen that before?
For
And-
context, we're talking about the little hand mirror, right?
He's the one he looks at the world through.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
got you.
Because again, that was going to be the video capture. But and then I go, I'm going to do some research and see if I can find examples of it from the 5 historical periods that they based that movie on. And I did. And then I probably found some stuff that kind of was some, I don't remember if I did. I don't remember, but but then I watched the movie again and then I came back to him and I go, okay, he's actually a prince. All these people around him who are also enchanted now, they were all people that worked there. He would have had a workshop that made him whatever the hell he wanted. That mirror is his window into the world. Okay, it would make sense he'd have a special thing for it to hang on to it because it's his only window into the world. That was my argument. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's all over I mean, it's a big deal in the construction of the room, but it's just a little element. You know what I mean? And I had to justify that whole element, not just to him, to myself. You know what I mean? Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
it keeps the idea grounded.
Yeah,
right.
it keeps it grounded and it makes you
Okay.
go, "Oh, that's weird. What is that?" You know what I mean? Like that doesn't make any sense. And at the end of the day, it really didn't make any sense. So it didn't happen, you know. I'd argue that the solution right now doesn't make a lot of sense to me either, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So that's what I'm saying. I got to justify these things, even from just a basic design perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't
Yeah.
sit around and go, I'm going to write a 300-page treatment of this thing. I would just go, I want to know the arc of this thing and what am I going to illustrate? And you're probably going to want to, obviously, illustrate the section that's really fun and cool and interesting to you. And that's totally fine. Does that make sense? Where'd everybody go?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was typing, my bad.
So you just, you want to have, it gives it resonance. It gives it resonance with you. It'll also help you make illustrative decisions, design decisions. It'll start to layer itself. It'll start to layer itself visually. It'll also start to give you ideas because you go, as you start thinking about this, you go, and sometimes even just drawing, maybe a character out of it or something, you go, I know who this person is. yeah, they got a little bit of attitude, and they'd be like this because their backstory's this. So they'd have this sort of front they show the world. And I'm just always thinking about that stuff. And then I'm going, okay, so the way they would carry themselves is like this, and they would carry something like this, and they would be very demonstrative in their behavior. All that stuff gives me like rich overlays into the illustration. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You
Thank
want to have, and that's the reason I like this class. I want you to go deeper into that narrative thinking, and then taking that narrative structure now and going deeper into now the design of your page or your story or whatever it is, because all these things have to come together. You got to have a good story. You got to have really cool illustration. You got to have purposeful illustration. I mean, who the hell wants to look, if you're looking at a children's book and you're a kid and you're like, there's 4 pages of exposition in here and you're 8, you're going to go, I don't read this stupid book. It's a children's book with a bunch of exposition because the story doesn't resonate with me because it's a lousy story. So they're over explaining it to me. Like, we've all seen that movie, correct?
Yeah.
We've all seen a movie that has too much exposition or too much. The guy in the room goes, I don't know, says something totally obvious to tell you who that character is. And you're like, really? Like, you got to just literally tell me who this character is? Like, this narrative isn't strong enough for that person to walk in. I go, I get who this guy is. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then there's the other side of the coin, which is like people like my parents who are like, who's that on the screen? What are they doing? And I'm like, listen.
Yeah. I mean, you know what is a really good example of just a whole bunch of tropes strung together in a movie is Avatar. It's like every stupid trope ever put together in a movie. It's laughable. Like when I finally
name 3 characters.
I'll tell you the one that was really laughable to me. One of them was the first scene with the guy, because I didn't see that movie until it was out for quite a while, was the guy who's like running the whatever it is, the operation up on the whatever that planet is, right? And he walks in the room, he's got like a scar, and he's like, I'm gonna tell him, and he's all like Johnny Badass, and you're just like, my God, this guy's like, really? Like, I saw that, and when I saw that, this is how I saw it. I go, is that supposed to be funny? Like, it's funny. Like, is that supposed to be funny? And it wasn't supposed to be funny, right? There's all these things out there, they're gonna kill you, they're blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And I was just like, Jesus Christ. And then you get later into the movie, and this is where it totally lost it, where they have some kind of battle, and like these, number one, they fly in all the military badass that all the 14-year-old boys get all pissed their pants over, and all the tough guys flying them, right? And then they have the scene where all these like robots or something like land on the planet, and they're like exoskeleton robots. I'm like, oh my God, this has like literally every cheesy sci-fi cliche in it ever. And the dialogue was terrible. Okay. Now, having said all that, that movie made what, $2 billion?
Yeah.
So much
like
money,
the
yeah.
highest gross.
I'm gonna dock it some because it only made that much money due to re-releases.
Pretty much.
Avatar was in theaters last month.
Look,
I also love how the poster's type is papyrus.
yeah, everybody bitches. Well, the not just the poster, the subtitles.
Yeah.
I know that
It's-
was shocking. Like, that was shocking.
Ew.
That was
The
really
one rule not to use papyrus in Comic Sans, and they do it.
Yeah, you
We'll
just
show
can't use
you.
papyrus anymore. You just can't. Like, there was a time where that was more of a like a, I don't know, if you're doing something with an Egyptian theme or something, they might use that, but you can't use it anymore. It's just it's tainted. You know what I mean? But you understand what I'm saying? Where they and by the way, who made that movie? Cameron, right?
James
Yeah,
Cameron.
James
Okay,
Cameron.
Cameron.
James Cameron. Michael Bay is a better example of this. Michael Bay made some of the easiest movies ever. But one thing I'll say about Michael Bay and James Cameron, both those guys, whatever I want to say about their movies, they know how to make movies that make billions of dollars, that resonate with a lot of people. Now, I'd say that's because they hit the lowest common denominator all the time. But so what? You know what I mean? And I'd argue now, Marvel does it much better. If you want that kind of movie, Marvel does it a lot better. You know what I mean? DC does a horrible job of it. It's really Marvel and the Star Wars universe. It seems like they're doing a good job. I don't really keep up with it, but it seems like they're doing a good job with that. Yeah.
Eh.
Yeah,
They're
I gotta
doing
agree with
pretty-
Andrew on that one.
Huh? What is it?
Mhm.
The sequels aren't great, but
Okay, but here's
the
the
shows
thing.
are good.
Okay, but here's what I always say about Star Wars movies, and I haven't seen all of them or anything. I just look at it and go, hey, it's a Star Wars movie, whatever. I just look at that as entertainment. I go, wow, it's big roller coaster ride, cinematic craziness, cool. And then when they started rolling them out again, what I always ask people, because they come out and they go, oh, the story and all this stuff. And I go, did it look like a Star Wars movie? Did it feel like a Star Wars movie? Yeah. And I go, well, what else do you want? It's a Star Wars movie, man. It's like, it's not that deep. You know what I mean? It's just not that deep. It's entertainment. It's like very surfacey entertainment. And they're great at it. And it's fun. I'm not knocking it. But it's like, I can't get that deep on the story. It's like, come on. The story's it's not that deep. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's fun. It's totally fun. I get it. But I can't hyper critique them. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cares about that. Who else?
All right. So now, oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. I just had a couple of ideas of like stories that happened to me in my childhood. So one of them is that I was probably like 5 years old. I was at a friend's house, and we were just like playing in a room, and then she like pulled out a pair of scissors and she's like, I want to cut your hair. And I was like, no. And then she started chasing me all over the house. I tried to run to her mom and say like, oh, help me. But she was like bathing her baby twin brothers or something. And then like when I went home, my hair was just like,
this sounds traumatic. Are you okay?
It was something very vivid in my memory. I was like really young.
Here's my here's my comment on that. That's a record of an event.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was like. I don't know if it's too like.
Look when you, because you can use that as I mean, to me, almost anything could spark an idea.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that resonates with you or something, open your mind up to it and go, how can I sort of expand this into something interesting?
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of thing, right? Or maybe try that. And you don't have to draw all this stuff. Sometimes you just think about it and go, is this cool? You know, what if it's whatever? And if it doesn't, abandon it, come up with another one. Because what you want to do, and the reason I like to work fast and just do quick thumbnails and all that kind of stuff, is really, I really want to do is tear through my crappy ideas till I get to a good one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To me, it's always like anything. If you're designing anything or whatever you're doing creatively or whatever, it's like you got a machete, you're in this jungle, you're chopping through the forest for hours and hours, and maybe you get lucky and boom, there's a city of gold. And that's your story, right? But you had to chop through the forest to get there. It takes a while to get there. And sometimes you have a really good story right off the bat, right? But what we're trying to do is what I'm trying to get you to do here is exactly, maybe you have an idea like that. And then like, how can we shape that into something?
Right. Yeah.
Right. How can we make it interesting? How can we make it, think about this. You're talking about a graphic novel. Most of them I think are, longer form than, let's say, comic books or something, unless there's really long ones. Think about this. As the reader, would I be interested in this? If I was reading this, how long would it hold my attention? You know what I mean? Because like guys that I knew when everybody knows this, they would have, every time when I was a kid, 13, whatever, you'd be hanging out at your buddy's house. They'd have, maybe it was comic books, maybe it was whatever. You'd pick stuff up and you'd look at it, maybe read a page or two, and you go, I don't care about that. You know what I mean? Pick this thing up, man, that's boring. You pick this up. Wow, this is really cool. You know what I mean? It's got to be that kind of thing that grabs your attention, right? And by the way, it's a really good idea to go over to wherever. Well, the only thing it's around now, or you guys probably know other better places. Go to a comic book shop, Barnes and Noble, whatever, and just take a look at some graphic novels and just soak it up a little bit. You know what I mean? And I would try and not go to the common ones. Go to ones that are a little more off the beaten path and a little more personal and that kind of thing. Does that make sense? I love looking at them because I every time, I'll go find or go looking through them and I'll go through a bunch of crap. And then all of a sudden you go, wow, this is kind of interesting. You know what I mean? This is really cool. And look at the art. It's really cool. And what I love about that is such a diversity of styles of art, because it's not, when you talk about, and I think Marvel's actually really good about this. They let people take a lot of liberties with styles and stuff. Like Disney doesn't do that kind of thing. Most people, they really control it. But graphic novels, it's like, it's your thing. It's usually somebody's thing. And they're like, this is how I draw. And sometimes it's more primitive, the drawing style or whatever, but it's cool. And I want you guys to see past that too, because there's a lot of times, a lot of these graphic novels are not drawn like beautifully, but they have a style. Does that make sense? And I'd argue a lot of times it's like, if you're going to draw everything where it's like anatomically correct and, you know, it's like, is that the right way to illustrate this particular story? It could be, okay? It could be the right way to do it, but is it? You know what I mean? And then I want you to open up your what you're looking at to accept things like that and go, yeah, that's got a primitive style, but it's really cool. You know what I mean? There's a lot of that stuff out there. You know, I'd argue manga's like that. It's a very primitive style, but a lot of you like it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I like a lot of stuff like that too, but it is a very primitive style. And I'm not talking, I know there's stuff in that genre that's not primitive. I know that, but a lot of it is. Okay. Dragon Ball Z is very primitive. Okay. Whatever that's classified under. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I know I didn't want to just completely go with that, but like, is that okay? And then I'll jump off from that just initially.
Let me see what you jump off with.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And right now I'm really just, you can pitch it, you know, you can throw out a couple panels if you want, whatever. I don't care. But I would kind of get the story pitched in before you start digging into the work.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to draw, because
more
I need to draw, okay, when I'm doing stuff, even though I'm just scribbling and doodling or whatever, it just helps me think. You know what I mean? So if you need to do that, that's fine too. You know, a lot of those things I wouldn't even show anybody, but it's just a lot of times, you know, people always go, where do you get your ideas? And I go, half the time I don't have an idea. I just sit down and I start drawing. And I sort of, I fall down the stairs and I land on my feet if I'm lucky. You know what I mean? And if I'm lucky, I land on my feet on time, you know, which sometimes you don't. But, you know, and you'll see, you know, when you go out and work, man, sometimes you're like, usually I have a lot of ideas, but once in a while they just dry up, man. You're sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning going, I got to go to work in like 4 hours or whatever. And I don't got anything. You know what I mean? I don't have anything. And then you start throwing crappy stuff down. You go, maybe I can walk through this. You're like, you're not going to walk through that. Everybody's going to know that stuff sucks. You know what I mean? If you think it sucks, trust me, they're going to think it sucks. You know what I mean? So take the time and polish the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, don't even polish it. Just shape it a little bit. Right?
Right.
We're not near polish yet. Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Who else?
All right, I got one, but I'm afraid you're gonna shoot it down for being too tropey now.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, so it's gonna start with like some medieval knights kind of walking through a dungeon, and there's like a monster hiding around a corner from them, and then one of them's gonna immediately stop everybody and be like, I know the monster's right around the corner here. And one of those little, you know, little devil and the angels that pop up on shoulders in cartoons, one of them's going to pop up on that guy's shoulder and be like, no, you can't see any monster around the corner here. And he's like, oh, no. I've got a rule book here that says I can. And he busts out a book. And they get into a big argument. And the rest of the knights that are here are just like banging their heads against the walls and stuff. And then it'll the fight will intensify between the little guy on his shoulder and the main knight, and it'll kind of pull out, and you'll see a bunch of people around a dining room table with, you know, dice and D&D characters and stuff, and it's two of the people there fighting over the minutia of rules and stuff.
I don't know. That's kind of fun.
Okay, cool.
So you're sort of going,
you're
sort of entering the fantasy world of what these people live in.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the idea is great, but you have 2 pages.
Oh yeah, and I've already done a mock-up. I think I could get it done in
No,
2
I think you
pages.
could do that.
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay,
you could
cool.
do that in 2 pages.
I just wanted to make, because personally, I'm also kind of like
All the
always.
panels will be this big.
Yeah.
You'll have
I
45
played
panels that big.
I played D&D, and I just want to say I love that idea. I've experienced that too many times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
same.
Yeah, I think that, look, I think it's okay. Here's why I think it works. You're not taking it all seriously. You're kind of commenting on the social, whatever that is around that, the culture around it. And it's clever. Does that make sense?
Cool. Okay.
And plus, I don't know where it's going until you pull back and go, oh, it's a Dungeons and Dragons game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm cool with that.
Cool.
Who else?
Right here, Mike.
Julia.
So I've been making a story about my characters, which is about a group of foxes and they're all starving, right? Until the leader comes across a sheep farm and there's a sheepdog watching over it, right? And he takes care of them. However, the fox befriends the sheepdog because he needs to get like access into the farm, you know? So the foxes can sneak in. However, the sheepdog doesn't know their plans, and one night when he does find out what happened, there's like a couple sheep left in the farm. There's like not a lot as before. He follows the blood trail, and he finds out that the leader of the foxes, which was his friend, was the one who killed most of the sheep, and he just feels betrayed.
It feels a little record of an eventy to me.
Oh, okay.
It's sort of like, I understand it. Like you've got a seed of an idea there. But okay, so wait, he befriends the sheepdog, you know, to trick him, right?
Yes.
I mean, there is a narrative there. But it's sort of like it almost feels like you got to expand it out a little bit and just show me 2 pages. Cause like, if I do it from beginning to end, I feel like it feels like he does this, he does that, and it's over. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think if you want to do that kind of a story, I'd probably expand it out a little bit. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Okay. So just, again, shape it a little more. Who else?
I do.
What do you got?
I was thinking about like something like there's this like a 12-year-old boy who is lost in space. And he's trying to find the crystal.
Nah, there's no story there. You got to give me why he's there. Why does he need that thing? When I hear crystal, I start thinking whatever that green thing is in Marvel movies. What is that thing?
The Infinity Stones?
I guess, whatever that is. Isn't there like a square thing?
The Tesseract?
That thing. You know what I mean? It's always like it's this mystical thing and we got to go find it because the mystical thing is going to do all these things. Oh my God, the bad guy's going to find the mystical thing before we do. Oh wait, there's 5 mystical things. One of them's missing. The bad guy's got 4 of them. I mean, it's like always the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, give me a reason. Yeah?
Yep.
Like, I don't care if the guy's in space, but give me a reason why he's out there. You know what I mean? Give me a reason, you know, what's he doing? You know what's a really tripped out? Have you guys ever read or did you see the movie Little Prince? Which I thought was amazing. Okay.
It was so good.
It's such a good movie.
But what I loved about that movie is how it didn't feel like, oh, this is just another telling of this. Like, I don't know where that, if you ever read the guy's story, it's super weird. Like the guy who wrote it. Did you guys ever read that?
Yes.
Yes.
Only like
a little bit.
5 pages long.
No, the original book is, I have the original book. It's like, I don't know, it's like that or something. But no, the guy who wrote it, his story, right?
They
Because
have
he
a
actually-
documentary for him on Netflix.
There's a documentary on him?
Yeah, it was really good.
I didn't know that. What's it on?
It's on Netflix.
Oh, I got to see that. I didn't know that. But anyway, he had this amazing, he's like this adventurer. He actually disappeared. He flew wherever and he disappeared. You know, they found him, I think, just not that long ago, I think. Super trippy. And I think he did actually crash in the desert and all that kind of stuff. But that story was so unique. You know what I mean? And then he's taking you to like these planets and all these places, but it didn't feel science fiction-y at all. It just felt like, whoa, this is just like super weird, creative storytelling. You know what I mean? Yeah. And by the way, Peter DeSeb did a lot of the designs for that movie, which is why they're so cool. And look at the character design in that movie, by the way. It didn't look like anything else. And then, you know, the kind of papery look to it and all that kind of stuff they did was really cool. I thought it was really cool. The only part I didn't like is there's too much exposition on the mom. Right? You didn't need to keep telling me she's like this overbearing mom. I got it. You know what I mean? Like you could tell me that in 10 minutes. I didn't need you to keep telling me. It's like, I got it. I get it. She's overbearing and she's, what's that called? She's like a stage mom or whatever, right? Not for showbiz, but
Helicopter moms.
A what?
A helicopter mom.
Yeah, and she's like super like, you have to do this, you have to do this, and here's your whole future, and here's this, and it's like you can tell me that basically in 10 minutes. You don't have to keep going back to it. I got it because I wanted to get into that world that they go into because that world was really interesting. I thought it was really cool, and it had such a good ending, right? And they had the balls to kill the old guy off, and it was really heartbreaking and all that kind of stuff. My girlfriend saw it, and she was like crying and stuff. So was I, but I hid it. All right, who else?
I have an idea.
Okay, what is it?
So I want to do a scene from a dream I had a little while ago that was oddly like consistent. So basically what happened was I got like abducted by like a cult who wanted to get in contact with their like eldritch god. And to make a long story short, there's a specific scene that was in that dream where I ended up getting in contact with the eldritch horror, ended up like being just like a normal kind of creature. And it actually hated the cult, and we ended up trying to figure out how to escape from them together. And I wanted to see if I could play around with that idea.
The creature was what again?
It was like an eldritch horror,
What's an
for
eldritch?
lack of a better term.
I think H.P. Lovecraft, like Cthulhu.
Yeah. Like an old entity.
But why is it there?
It took place in like space. So it was just like
okay.
an old
I think
entity
it
from
sounds
space.
interesting, but again, you got to shape it.
Yeah. I'm still
shape-
trying to figure out the details of it.
What I do like about that is, again, it's sort of what we were just talking about. I like things that sort of feel like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
I like that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, there's all that talk about there's only 7 stories. And I was watching a thing on Ron Howard, and he goes, I think there's 1 story, basically. You know what I mean? But I like it. And I get it. There's structure there and all that. I understand that. But I like it when I see something, I go, where in the hell did this? There's a lot of stuff like this right now, by the way, mostly on television. Storytelling where I'm going, this is so crazily creative. And some of it's like Breaking Bad was like that. That was a really creative writing on that. Mad Men was like that. I mean, there's a bunch of them. I see stuff all the time now. I'm like, this writing is so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you go, how do these writers they keep writing themselves out of these weird corners and stuff. And I don't know, it's all that stuff to me. It's really interesting to see that, you know what I mean? It feels much more, and I think what it is that I think they finally got a lot of where the creatives were driving the show. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think this could have happened a long time ago if all these, if you look at, and now with all this great stuff that's on TV now, when I look back, when I see clips of shows that were on when I was a kid, I'm like, it looks so primitive. It's like, I can't believe we watched this stuff. It was so bad. You know what I mean? A lot of shows back in the 60s and 70s and probably 80s, they were one-note gags, and they created a whole series around, like Gilligan's Island's a one-note gag, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a Green Acres is a one-note gag, and like, lawyer guy from New York, he's a big sharp New York guy with a sharp wife. They moved to this idiotic place where you're like, why would you ever move here? Like, he has a bunch of money, buys a farm, it's all broken down. Why would he do that? Everybody in the town's an idiot. So at some point you go, I think I need to get out of this town. This doesn't work. Everybody here's an idiot. And the whole premise of it made me crazy. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, and then every week it's the same joke, oh, I'm going to interact with the locals. It's going to be a big disaster. Episode over. Next week, same thing. Yeah. It's just like Beverly Hillbillies. Hey, it's a bunch of hillbillies and they get a bunch of money and they move to Beverly Hills. That was the whole show. It was always the same joke, on and on and on like that, where they had absolutely no storytelling or anything. And they were corny. You know what I mean? Like, ultra corny. It's like that stuff. If that's still playing, I'm shocked because I don't know who's watching it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I personally can't watch episodic shows and like each episode is their own story because of that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's a lot of good stuff out there now. There's a lot of great stuff out there now. And it's really cool to say that because old farts usually go, wow, so much better when I was a kid. It's like, no, it wasn't. Not that. Entertainment was not better when I was a kid. Maybe music was, but not that, not that.
One of my favorite newer genres right now is new weird.
What is it?
It's called new weird.
I don't think I know.
And it takes like thriller and horror and then crosses it with other genres. So it can cover like a really broad spectrum of things.
Sure.
And it's just really interesting to see what people do with it.
Sure. It's interesting to see what creative people with great ideas put together. It's awesome. It's why I like teaching. You know, when students hit something out of the park, it's really exciting. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or they just start getting it, or, you know, like, wow, that person is really, you know, on top of it, man. They're coming up with great ideas, they're drawing great, they're, you know, blah, 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 all that stuff. That's super exciting to see that stuff happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or just in general, when I see somebody succeeding at that, it makes me happy. You know what I mean? It's like, right on, man. That person's never gonna, like that guy who created The Walking Dead. That guy's never gonna have to work again the day of his life. You know how much money that guy's made? And that's going to be a perennial. They're going to show that forever. He's going to make money off it forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he just started that. I think he started that when he was a kid. It was a comic book. You know?
Yeah.
I got to find that story. There was an interview with him and he told his whole story of how that happened. And I want to find it for you guys because it was really interesting. Like how he just started that with like no thought to any kind of nothing except he was a kid. And he goes, I want to make comic books. And that was it. That's the only reason he did it. You know what I mean?
That's cool. I
know, it's super cool. And then it goes on. I mean, that's got to be so surreal when you're like, I didn't even do this I just did this because me and my buddy want to make comic books. And we looked on the back of the comic book and we go, distributed by Diamond Comics. Gets on the phone. Hey, I want to make a comic book. Okay. If you print 1,200 of them, we'll distribute them. Okay, cool. And then all they do is go, if we can sell 1,200, we can make another one. And that's all they want to do is make another one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I just heard that some band, I don't know who it was, I was watching the other day, and I forgot who it was, who's, you know, they're hugely famous now. And they go, when we were making a record, all they were thinking about is they go, we just want this to do good enough. We could do this again because this is super cool. You know what I mean? That's all they cared about. You know, they just want to play music and not have to work. And it's exciting. You know what I mean? And I think approach it from, I mean, look, I get everybody wants to make a living from that's all totally fun. But I think when you're doing the work and everything, I think you got to tap into the fun of it and the reason you love doing it. Right? Yeah. I mean, we all want to make money and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But why do you get into the craft of it and the reason you do it? That's what's so fun to me about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
All right. Who else?
Yeah, I guess I'll do mine.
Okay, what is it?
I'll pitch my idea. I have one idea. And can it take place at Disneyland? Is that okay?
What is it? It could take place anywhere if it's a fun story.
So, okay. I just got off that the roller coaster, the new one, the Incredicoaster, right?
The what?
At the Incredibles, yeah, the Incredicoaster.
It was Mickey, whatever before.
Yeah, was it California Adventure, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, so my fiance at the time, a few years ago, she's like, hey, so what did you think? So what did you think of your first roller coaster? How did that go? And I'm like deathly afraid of roller coasters.
Yeah, so am I.
It's weird. I know, man, like everyone makes fun of me of it, but I'm like, I hate them. So I'm like, I was gonna puke, but it went back in, I loved it and I hated it at the same time. Like
I never loved it.
It fucking sucked, but I'm just glad it's over. I'm not gonna go on, I don't know if I want to go on anymore. She's like, you sure you don't want to go on anymore? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Okay. So we go to this other ride that it's like a virtual reality ride, right? So we get in, we get like strapped up and all ready to do the virtual reality thing. And the host, the control person who like, she has her hand on this lever, like she's about to start the ride, right? and she's like, hey, how many of you, this is your first time? I'm like, me with a bunch of other people, put our hands up. She's like, oh, that is so great. We're so glad to have you. And I'm sorry. And she pulls the lever down. And at that second, I realized, oh shit, this is not a virtual reality ride. This is an accelerated drop tower.
Was that
And
for real?
yeah, for real. Yeah.
Was that,
this
what
is
was that?
real life.
Was that the Tower of Terror thing or whatever it's called?
Yeah, this is the Guardians of the Galaxy at
Oh,
the time.
okay.
I
I did that
realized,
to somebody before.
dude, it is so messed up. I was so
Yeah, I wouldn't get
pissed.
on that.
Holy, yeah. So she tricked me this whole time. She's like, oh, it's gonna be fine. Like, I think it's just one of those virtual reality ones. We get there, it shoots me up, and I'm like, well, first of all, the person's like, I'm sorry, goodbye, and it cuts to me being like, wait, what?
Okay,
And-
but
and
here
that-
again, that's a record of
Yeah.
an event.
It is a record of an event. I don't know how I don't know how I would have drawn that, like, because it's really hard to draw an inside of a ride that shoots you up, which
Well, there's ways
I
to do
guess-
that. I'm not worried about that. You got to polish that out and give me more of a story.
yeah, I don't know how to do that. I suck at stories. I just thought I was trying to find the
look,
comedy.
Look.
of
I
it,
don't like it when people go, I suck at that, because I get that all the time with like, oh, I suck at
Mm-hmm.
drawing people. And then by the end of the term, they know how to draw people or whatever. But it's the same. You have to dive into it and start. You have to dive into it and start doing it. And then I can help you to start to shape it. You just got to kind of go, okay, is that the story? Or is it, I always look at everything as just a jumping off point for, it's probably annoying for people around me to talk to me because I'm always like making up stupid stuff and all that kind of crap. They're probably like, shut up. You got to find something that you can, it's not even just expanding. Sometimes it's just, okay, I was just thinking about this. I was watching a fish. Where was this? I don't know why. I started thinking.
Why are you watching a fish?
Just watching
No,
a fish.
I think it was on for some reason I focused on the fish in the fish in a tank or whatever, right? And I go, those fish, they live in that world like that. They don't know what that world is because they don't know anything that's outside the world. So then the fish would have created probably their own mythology, and the mythology probably would have started with, like, they see you out there, this thing out there, and they probably go, that's the monster that lives beyond the impenetrable edge of the water. That's the monster or the thing that lives out there in that world out there. They have no idea what that world out there is. So they'd make up their own mythology around who you are. And you'd probably be some mythological creature. And why can't I get past the edge of the water? What's beyond the edge? What happens when I get past the edge? There'd be this whole mythology in a fish's brain about what that is out there, because they have no idea why they're in that tank. They have no idea why the water ends. They have on and on and on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's super creative.
But then you go, I want to
but-
draw this. I am going to draw it. And then I go, I'm just going to draw it for fun because I want to go down the rabbit hole of the thinking of the fish and how they would interpret that world. Okay. It's the same thing that early humans did. They, the sun or whatever it is, an eclipse, and they go, oh my God, the gods are pissed off at us and they're going to take the light away and we won't be able, crops won't grow and all that. And they make up this whole stupid, or it wasn't stupid, they didn't know any better. We better sacrifice 4 or 5 people. Otherwise, there's not going to be any sun anymore. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's the same idea. You know what I mean? Or if you get 3 people together in some little remote part of the world, they come up with some concept of religion with no input or anything. And then you go, wow, everybody's kind of concept of religion, even though they're completely disconnected from each other, is kind of the same concept, really, mostly. You know what I mean? Scientology is a little different, right? But that's modern. And that was written
More
by
a
science
tax
fiction.
haven than a religion.
That's what?
I said it's more of a tax haven than a religion.
Yeah.
Scientology
But
is
it's
the
also,
best.
it's but and it was also written by a science fiction writer, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is pretty clever. It's like, hey,
He's super creative.
I can come up with a whole bunch of crazy mythology. I just got to get enough people to buy it. You know what I mean? And then they're going to start giving me all their money and everything, just like every other religion. But
They
anyway,
also give out scholarships.
yeah, but
And they
okay,
have great gyms.
what I'm saying about the water fish thing is just I see things constantly and then I go and I extrapolate things out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Wish me luck, I guess. Dang.
Just go
Yeah,
for it,
You're,
dude.
you're
I'll
too
help-
good. Okay, I'll go
Just
for it.
come up with the basic idea for an interesting thing and we can start shaping it on Monday. Yeah.
Nice. Yep.
And you could have 3 or 4 and you don't have to go down that far down the rabbit hole. Just go, I think this is a good idea. I think it's a good idea. And then boom. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice. Yep.
Okay. Who else? Am I depleted? Cynthia. Where's Cynthia? She off making a sandwich?
She doesn't want you putting her on the spot.
It's not on the spot. I'm not interested, by the way, in putting anybody on the spot. I here's what I actually want you guys to hopefully, especially now that we're moving into this part of this thing. It was much more rigid before. I want it to be, I want you guys to be very, I'm not going to sit around and trash you for an idea. I think that's totally ineffective. I want you to feel creatively free to go, yeah, this might be silly, but what do you think? I want that environment here. I'm not going to sit around and go, well, that's a stupid idea. I'm not going to do that. Okay. I might say like, that's a trope or that's, needs to be fleshed out or that and all that stuff, but I'm not going to jump all over you about an idea. I think that's the worst thing you could do in a creative situation. Does that make sense? And by the way, if you're ever in creative management, remember that there's nothing worse than some idiot boss who goes, Candace, what's your idea? And you're like, normally you have 10,000 ideas, but when somebody does that to you, it totally screws you up. And I don't know if I've said this in here before, but one thing I always did, I would do a couple of drawings. I would just go out into where everybody, out in the area we had, and I'd go out there and I go, hey guys, what do you think of this? For the fall line or whatever we're doing. And then they'd all come around and they'd all go, and they all knew that I didn't, again, the same idea. I always told them, I go, look, ideas, I want ideas and stuff. And then they'd go, that kind of sucks. Or they'd go, well, that's kind of cool, but, and then as soon as they started talking, I go, grab paper and a pen, just go in the war room, which was our conference room thing. And we had a piece of foam core in there all the time. And then somebody would go, okay, so I'm thinking this, I go draw it. Then they draw it. And I'd sit there and I'd start putting all these things on the board, right? All the ones I thought were, had merit. And then sometimes it'd be like somebody'd have kind of a dumb idea, but it's like, but that part of the idea is really cool. You know what I mean? And then somebody else would add to it. Somebody else would add to it and do this. And it's just, and then it sort of burns itself out after about an hour and a half or 2 hours. The worst thing you can do is try to keep it going. You just go, okay, that's good. That's good for today. Because now I've got 25, 30 ideas on there. Then I go get my boss and I go, I think that one's good. I think that one's kind of cool. I think that one's cool. We take off the ones that aren't. And now we got a good solid, maybe 10. And then you do the same thing again. And I'd have the whole line in probably 2 to 3 days. Right. And everybody go, wow, that's amazing. I go, it's not amazing. I have an amazing team that you guys never used. And I came in here and I just leveraged the team. It's not amazing. You got a bunch of creative people in here. I just asked for their ideas. They've been chomping at the bit to do this. You just didn't let them do it. You know what I mean? And then it makes your team happier because that's what they want to do. They want to contribute ideas. And they have an environment where they can come to you at any time and go, hey, I got a cool idea. You know what I mean? And then you might go, I can't do that, man, because I don't have the budget for it. And it just doesn't fit anywhere. But they know that you're not shooting them down just to shoot them down. You know what I mean? Because if they had a good idea, man, I was all over it. You know what I mean? I don't want to sit around trying to think of all the good ideas. Screw that. You know what I mean? Plus, they're not going to be as good. If that's one place where, like, if you have a bunch of really talented people, 10 heads are better than 5. You know what I mean? And then, best idea wins. Doesn't matter whose idea it is. Best idea wins. And then you just take that stuff and you start delegating that and go develop that up more. Take these 5 and develop more. You take these 3, you do that. Then you start putting your presentation together, right? Same thing. Big jumble of ideas, bunch of doodles, blah, blah, blah. And then you polish. It's no different. That process is kind of true to me anyway, of anything creative. Does that make sense? Where does Cynthia go?
I'm right here.
What happened to you?
I'm still here.
So you have any ideas yet? You
I
don't
was
have to.
thinking of, all I have right now is a story just me and my sister fighting over a pizza when we were kids.
If you could shape that into something.
Okay, that's all I have right now.
Okay, so Monday, everybody knows what we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
Monday, I want everybody to have an idea. And if you pitched one tonight and they said shape it out or come up with a few more, whatever you want to do, I want you guys to start moving along, and I want everybody to have an idea on Monday, right? It could just be the seed of an idea, okay? Because again, we're not going to have as much front end time on this craft wise, so you're going to have a little more time to think about the story, and then we'll jump in, okay?
Mhm.
You good?
Mike,
Yeah.
so my story, like, so is the treasure hunting part approved, or
I don't have a problem with treasure hunting. Give me a reason why. Give me a reason what they're hunting.
is money not enough? Because money is, you know,
Money?
the primary motivator for everything, right?
Money?
Yeah, because like I feel like call to adventure is also kind of a cliche.
Hey, look,
No.
look, almost everything you could reduce to a cliche.
Right.
I'm just trying to get you to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff, the good from the bad, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I can give you 100, oh God, who knows how many.
I mean, they can go because they want us to think.
Movies, stories, whatever that I like that are absolute total cliches, but they're fun, they're good stories, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't always have to be something amazingly original. And I'd argue that most things aren't, even things that are in their own way original. You're sort of like, it's that type of story. That's fine. I don't care if it falls into a genre. Like, I don't mind a genre. What I'm trying to avoid is just these cliched sort of entertainment design genres, which are just all, you know, what they are. You know, you guys all know what it is, right? I don't care if it takes place in space, but give me a cool story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I very rarely get a story that involves some sort of apocalyptic world that's very interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This doesn't happen very often, because if you're going to that, I'm trying to get you to be more of a conceptual thinker. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And by the way, it will help you with the other stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes. I didn't.
Because you're going, look, a lot of this stuff is very cut and dry. It's like you come up with an idea, if, you know, probably some research, you know, and the research could be completely not apples to apples. You just go, when I got the pitch for the thing, again, the thing California Adventure, they're like, the way they pitched that to me or told me this, what they were working on. When you're outside of these things creatively, you don't know. He told me what they're working on. I'm not kidding you. When he got done explaining it to me, I went, he goes, you think you could do that or whatever? And I go, yeah, sure. I had no idea what he was talking about. I mean, I had no idea what he was talking about. I'm like, what is he talking about? You know what I mean? It was so kind of broadly conceptual, but so then they had narrowed it into, hey, how would people look at animation? I forgot the century, 17th century. I can't remember what century it was. How would they look at it? Would they look at it as alchemy? Would they look at it as science? Would they look at it as paranormal activity? Would they look at it as magic? Would they, you know, all these different ways you could look at it. And then when I went in and started working on it, what was on the style boards? 17th century scientific instruments that look really cool. I don't think they were all that functional, but they looked really cool. So we were starting to go, that's part of the look. That's the sorcerer's room. This is, you know, all the research around it. It wasn't Disney research. It was conceptualizing what this place looked like by going to the nearest thing you can and then extrapolating out of that into your world. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
You're not, you got to go to the nearest thing you can. And sometimes that thing is maybe a time period or a place, and you go, well, this takes place in here, but that's that. I know, but the societal things here kind of made sense, and the way they lived, you know, in this vertical situation kind of could be interesting visually. We could pull that over here into this world, and maybe expand the idea of a verticality. You know, you're pulling these things from all this different research. So the process is usually big idea, you know, ideating, and then starting research to sort of feed the ideas so they don't just look like a bunch of made up ideas. Because when I see made up ideas, I always look at it and go, you just made that up, right? There's no research behind it. No. Okay, well, that's what it looks like. It looks like a 7th grader designed it, you know, because there's no knowledge behind it. Okay. So it's always sort of that process. There is a process to this stuff. It's not what the world at large thinks it is, where we all sit here in our beanies or in our, what do they call, berets, in our Parisian bars pontificating about culture. That's not what waiting for inspiration to strike us. That's not how it works. It's a process, and you got to develop a process. Okay. Ideating, I'm just paraphrasing it or simplifying it. Ideating, research to feed now the ideas, start to extrapolate the things out of that and start to pull things out of these things visually if you need to, and then start to build a real world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
She always says it's so weird. Yeah.
I don't know. It's,
what?
I don't know. Like my throat hurts a little bit, and I'm kind of tired. So
not allowed. You're too
I
young
don't
to
know.
be tired, man. You're too young to be tired. You're not allowed to be tired. I'm not tired. Huh?
I'll fight you on that, Mike.
I'm ready to go, man. I'll take all you guys on. Like that. And
I'll have you
bam,
know
you
I
can see.
started weightlifting again, so I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, you probably will. I'm getting too old for it. Okay, so everybody knows what they're doing. Yes, Leah?
Yes.
I'll add more details to the story.
Wow, you guys got a lot of chat going on in here.
So on Monday, if we have our ideas set, we can send you some stuff on the Google Drive.
You can send me stuff before. I'll open up. I'm going to take everything off the Google Drive, so I'll shut it. Make sure you guys get everything in there, okay, that you owe me or whatever, so I can grade all that and be done with it. And I want it today. I won't shut it until I don't know, probably in the morning or something. But once I shut it, that's it.
Submitted our paintings already on Monday. Is that, do we need to resubmit them?
I should have that.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. I know what you did. The only thing I was going to say about yours, you could have softened up his hair a little bit.
Oh, more? Okay.
Well, yeah, just a little bit. Okay, everybody knows
So
what
wait,
they're
would
doing.
you want me to turn it in again? Sorry.
No,
Okay.
you're fine. Don't. Yeah, when we get to that point, I'm just gonna, because I go back through them and I start obsessing on them and I go, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that and I should have done that. So I might come in and just go, hey, you could have done that, you could have done that. It's not going to affect your grade or anything.
Okay.
It's still going to be an F. It's fine.
Okay.
No, it'll be a good grade. Anyway, so I don't, if you have some drawings and things, you want
Oh,
to
you never looked at my drawing.
Huh?
You never looked at my drawing.
What drawing?
I submitted a sketch for this next assignment in the folder.
Man, Andrew's the king of like right at the end of class going, hey.
But we're ending the class. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
see? I'll take a look
Well,
at
I
it.
told.
I'll send you.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
That's my fault. That's 100% my fault. I didn't. I screwed up. I threw everything out. It was totally stupid. If anybody else did that, I'd say they're an idiot. Actually, I'll say I'm an idiot. How's that?
Very satisfying.
But it's weird that Google doesn't go, are you sure you want to delete this like everything else does? I accidentally hit the remove and just gets rid of it. It's like, wait, you could have asked me for sure if that's what I want to do. You know what
Maybe they got tired of people always complaining that programs are always asking them if they want.
I'm fine
to
with
do
that. I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? By the way,
Yeah.
Order of the North Star. Okay. All right, you guys. I'll see you on Monday.
All
Yeah.
right.
Later.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Mike.
Mike.
Thanks, you guys.
I'll